All right. Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope everyone enjoyed their Shabbat. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. And as you can see today by the title, we're going to be getting into Sephardim and African Jewry and how they were indeed victims of the slave trade. All right. Shalom, shalom to everybody in the chat. I put out a poll, I believe, last night for everybody to basically make a vote on what they want to get into. And it was basically unanimous that everybody wanted to get into this topic. All right, and this is a very important topic because it'll basically just strengthen the case of who we are from two standpoints. We have um Jews coming in from Europe that was enslaved right alongside the so-called Africans, or so-called African Jews as we call them, enslaved in Americas as well. You know, a lot of people ask, where's the evidence for people being called Jews being sold as slaves? Where's the evidence of Jews being sold as slaves in America? All right, well, today we're about to bring out that evidence. Um, if you've already been privy to my Sephardic Jews videos or watched them, you would know that a lot of these times they were called things such as Latinos, Lancados, Tango Mas, Luso African, Afro Portuguese. So when we go over sources throughout this video and we see those names, we shouldn't be confused on that. Because again, we've already brought out videos and things like that showing you who these Lancados were, showing you who these Latinos were, these Luso Africans. These are all descendants of the Sephardic Jews. So with part one, with the first video we're going to be doing, we're going to be dealing with the Sephardic Jews and how they was enslaved in the Americas. And what we're going to do with part two is we're going to bring out the African Israelites and how, you know, they indeed carried their Judaism into America, how they identified themselves as Israelites and how that rolled over. All right. So again, we're about to go ahead and get started with the presentation today. And again, before we even get started, we're going to give our praises, honor, and glory to our Heavenly Father, to our Elohim above, for giving us the ability to review this information today. All right, for giving us the ability to dig into this information and just bring out the truth of his people and his scattered ones, his dispersed ones. All right. So as you can tell by the title, European and African Jewry. Let's get into it. And okay, if you have any questions, any comments, you already know, just go ahead and leave them in the chat section. We'll get to it. And make sure you like this video and thumbs it up and share it as well. All right. So let's get into it. The first people we'll be dealing with today is the Black Latinos. All right. The Black Latinos. All right. So Black Latinos were Hispanic-sized Black Latinos or Latinos expelled to the Spanish America from Spain during the 15th century. All right. They were the earliest Black slaves in America. So that's very important as well, because we've always been taught that, you know, the original batch of slaves, the first slaves came over 1619. They was from Western Africa, but that's far from the truth. You actually had these so quote unquote Blacks coming out of Spain and Portugal in the 15th century. All right. And before we even continue, who were these Blacks in Spain and Portugal? That's the question I have for everyone. But continuing on, it says, after the initial stages of the Spanish colonization of the Americas showed that American Indians were not suitable for the labor, that the conquerors, Nicolas de Ovando, decided to bring slaves from Spain. All right, so the American Indians wasn't suitable for slavery, so they started to bring slaves from Spain, not slaves from Africa. Between 1502 and 1518, Castile exiled hundreds of Black Latinos, all right, primarily to work as miners. And we know Castile had a long history with these Black Sephardim. Opponents of their enslavement cited their Christian faith, all right? These Black Latinos were new Christians, all right? They were converted to Christianity. And their repeated attempts to escape to the mountains or to join the Native Americans in revolt. All right. These Black Latinos will begin to form the early Maroon settlements. All right. And then we have a quote down here to the bottom right. And it's just letting us know, it's a pretty good quote. It says, many white slave owners considered dark-skinned Iberians dark enough to be sold as slaves. So we actually do know, this is proof that we had Black people coming from Spain, Portugal, things like that, doing the slave trade. All right. So let's continue to dig into this. All right, next source, right quick. We're just about to get an understanding on what this Ladino is. All right, source to the left, the rise of the transatlantic slave trade in Western Africa, 1300s through 1589. All right, and the highlighted, it says Ladino, non-Iberians, examples, Jews or slaves who speak Spanish. All right, so when we go back to the previous source and it said that these Black Latinos were Hispanic size, that just means they speak Spanish. All right, so we see a Ladino is a Jew or a slave. And even at below that, Lancados, we know that those would be descendants of these Jews that went into Western Africa, as it says, people of Portuguese origin living in Guinea in the 16th and 17th century. These people were also known as Tango Mas. All right, but continuing, many Latinos were mulattoes or Moriscos. That's very important. Many Latinos were mulattoes or Moriscos. So we're going to start at the very top. All right. And it says, even as the policies of the first European colonists were forming, transatlantic trade in the African slaves was developing. Blacks were dispatched to the new colonial possessions almost from the start, and free blacks as well as slaves made the voyage. All right. And we know a lot of these free blacks coming into America. This is from previous videos that we brought up, but we know a lot of these free blacks coming from America or coming to America were of Jewish origin or Sephardic origin as well. But to highlight it, it says, in the first stages of the slave trade, the crown, having just instituted a near-uniforming of religion in Spain, specifically that of the Latinos, Christianized Spanish-speaking slaves. All right. All right. And we know that the Inquisition started off when they was trying to convert these Latinos or these Jews into Christianity. But it goes on to say, should be allowed passage to the Indies. All right. In 1501, royal decrees prohibited Jews, Muslims, conversos, or Moriscos from going to the New World. And in the same year, transatlantic trade in Africans began. All right. So they actually decreed this or said you cannot bring these people into the Americas. But we're going to see that they actually did after the 1500s, specifically after 1501, when this decree was signed. We're going to see that they actually did continue to bring these peoples in. Now, going back down to the second highlighted portion, it says in Spanish America, the term Ladino at first described a slave who had been born in Spain or who had been, who had resided there long enough to acquire the language. All right, and that could be a Sephardic Jew, that could be a Moor. And the third highlighted, it says many of the Latinos in the early period were mulattoes or Moriscos. All right, Christian converts of Muslim origin, and could escape detection more easily, right? And we know a lot of the Sephardim were Moorish Jews, so don't even get crossed up with that. But again, it's important because this says many Latinos were mulattoes or Moriscos. Let's continue. All right, we're going to start at the very top on this. Well, actually, let's just start at the highlighting. All right, let's just start at the highlighting. It says in 1652, for example, Luanda merchants argued that Latinos, Luanda slaves, would run away if they saw other slaves being taken away from Luanda to Sao Tome. All right. And if you've been privy to my page, my channel, we brought out how these Jews from Sao Tome actually migrated. Some of them migrated from Sao Tome and went into Angola and into Luanda. All right, so we can see why these Latinos were actually trying to escape back to Sao Tome. As it said, slaves or Luando slaves would run away if they saw other slaves being taken away from Luando to Sao Tome. All right, according to the merchants, previous cases had shown that when Ladino slaves were shipped from Luando, their fellows escaped to nearby villages and joined enemy African rulers. All right, deportation to Brazil played right into Africans' fear of being separated from their community in Angola. All right, according to Governor Miguel and Antonio de Mello, for slaves who live in Luanda, there is no other punishment so deeply felt for fear than being sent to serve their captivity in America or Brazil, or rather Brazil. And we know some of these punishments for Jews were to be sent to Angola or Brazil as slaves as well. But that's just to throw something in. All right, next source to the left. World Encyclopedia of Black Peoples, Volume 1. All right. World Encyclopedia of Black Peoples, Volume 1. Moorish and Jewish slaves could not be tolerated. All right. Moorish and Jewish slaves could not be tolerated. We're going to start at the very, very top where it says the major legal steps. All right. So the major legal steps fixing the sub-Saharan Africans as a New World's bondsmen were taken. Let me see if I can select your family. There's something blocking my vision. All right, so it says New World bondsmen were taken prior to the next 15 years. In 1522, a slave insurrection in Hispaniola was crushed only after numerous whites had been killed. The royal governor undertook a full-scale investigation of the incident and concluded that disgruntled Latinos had excited Muslim bozos. All right. So Latinos were your Spanish black slaves, as they like to call them, and your bozos or your bozels were your African-born slaves. All right. Latinos, your Spanish-born slaves, bozos, African-born slaves. So Latinos had excited Muslim bozos or bozels of the Wolof Nation. All right. And these blacks were from Senegal. All right, so it goes on to say, therefore, in 1526, the crown prohibited the dispatch to the New World of any Latinos, Wolofs, or Bozels believed to be followers of Islam. All right, followers of Islam. All right, so it goes on to say, moreover, in the same Cadula royal edict or decree, Madrid concluded that all Bozels, except those who were Wolof or Muslim, were peaceful and obedient. All right. So they said it was only these specific people that was Muslims of the bozos that were, I guess you can say, uprisers and things like that. But the other peoples who were not Muslims in Africa, they were peaceful and obedient, as they said. Continuing, it says this exercise is questionable logic was followed in 1530 and 1532 by the Cedolas, prescribing the dispatch of any white, Moorish, Jewish, Ladino, or mulatto slave to the Spanish-controlled sections of the New World. All right, and we're not really dealing with no white people and how they were enslaved. Yes, some of them was enslaved into the Americas, but it's not really a high enough number to dig into. But what we really here for is where it says the Moorish, Jewish, Ladino, or mulatto slaves to the Spanish-controlled sections in the New World. We know that these Moorish, these Jewish, these Latinos, or these quote-unquote mulattoes, these were the black peoples of Europe. All right, these were the black peoples of Europe. And we can see here clearly that they were actually sold as slaves to Spanish-controlled sections in the New World. At the very bottom, it ends it up by saying Moorish and Jewish slaves could not be tolerated. All right, this was because they were running away. They were teaming up with Native American Indians. This and that. All right, they were rebelling. But continuing on, we have this source right here, Genesis y Desarrollo de la Esclavitud in Colombia. All right, and this is of course in Spanish, but we have the translation for it. Next page. Specifically, it says that sometimes the sale of the Latinos and Criollos, all right, Latinos, Criollos, those are basically the same people. We've already brought that out. But sometimes the sale of the Latinos and Criollos was carried out through the auction, in which small lots or 2 or 3 slaves were alienated, some more, or the mother with her children. There were cases in which the Inquisition sold in this way Ladino house servant slaves belonging to suspected Judaic heresy and fugitive slaves recovered when they were returned to their owners. All right, so you had the Inquisition selling away Ladino house servant slaves who were believed to belong or who were believed to be practicing Judaic heresy, all right, or even fugitive slaves. All right, so the important thing to take for this is that they were enslaving Latinos because they were practicing Judaism. All right, they were enslaving Latinos, specifically the Inquisition was enslaving Latinos because they were practicing Judaism. As it says, suspected of practicing or belonging to suspected Judaic heresy and fugitive slaves. All right. So that's very important. We see again that these Latinos, these Jews were indeed sold as slaves to America by way of the Inquisition and more. But let's continue to break this down. And we're going to break this down. We're going into North Africa before we even shift to, the main meat of this subject, all right, which is the Americas. We got to start off with North Africa. All right, so Jews captured and sold from North Africa. British captives from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, 1563, 1760. Start at the very top, and we're going to end at the highlighter. So it says, first, the Euro Christians did not see only Muslims as their adversaries to be captured, tortured, and enslaved. Jews too were captured. All right, Jews too were captured, making the Muslims and the Jew fellow victims of the Christian master. Quick question: where did the Christians, or where did these Western Europeans send their slaves? All right, to the Western world. Continuing, in their piracy and privateering, Western Europeans captured Jews from North Africa, selling or exchanging them in the manner they did Muslims. After all, in the early modern Islamic world lived the largest number of Jews in the world, spread from the interior of Morocco all the way to the Ottoman Levant and beyond. In North Africa, Jews were employed at court and were sent as diplomatic missionaries, and a Jew serving the Moroccan ruler, Mullah Zaidan, turned pirate and captured 3 Spanish ships. There were many occasions when Jews appealed to Muslims authorities to help them against the Europeans. So these people were really being enslaved. And we know these Sephardics migrated over to North Africa after the Inquisition. And this last line is very important because it says, let me read it again. There were many occasions when Jews appealed to Muslim authorities to help them against the Europeans. All right. So these Europeans were actually coming at these Jews next, as we haven't really been taught that. All right. We haven't really been taught that. All right. Continuing on, starting at the highlighted. References to Jewish captives appear periodically in English and other sources. On February 1668, the 25th day thereof, wrote Admiral Thomas Allen, 3 Turks, 3 Jews, and 2 wives with a Portugal were by a Moroccan of 36 guns forcibly taken on a small English vessel. All right, and if you look to the right, I found this very interesting because you can find a lot of medieval artwork, portraying Turks or Moorish Turks as what we see right here to the right. So when it says 3 Turks, 3 Jews, more than likely this is what it was. This would be a depiction of what that man looked like, or what these 3 Turks look like. We already have an idea what the Jews look like, and I'm even going to bring a source out for that to let you know we're not talking about no white people, no white Jews being enslaved from North Africa. All right. But continuing, in 1685, 20 Jews were captured and enslaved from Coron in Morea by Motley's pirates. Such was the hostility to Jews among the English that a few years earlier, in 1681, Jews were removed from Tangier because of their intimate involvement in the slave trade and their roles as intermediaries in ransom negotiations. All right, so these people were negotiating ransoms for their brethren. They were trying to get their brethren out of enslavement. All right. They were frequently attacked in official letters and consular correspondence. All right. So in December 1715, George Potton, the British ambassador to Morocco, wrote from Gibraltar in this garrison of Moors and Jews about the number of our captives in Mequinez, subjects of the Mul Ismail. And some of these Jews, or those Jews, principals who have the handling of the emperor's money and pay him yearly, use for the same. The only way to make them weary is to use the Jews here as the poor Christians are used in the Barbary, or rather worse, to seize of their goods, they being all belonging to the Moors, to put in prison the chief, making the others work at the fortifications. All right, so this is what they were saying that they should do to these Jews. Like it says, they should seize them for their goods, All right, they should put them in prisons, and they should make the others work at fortifications to keep all manner of trade from them. No ships to hover on their coast, and what should be strictly examined and other precincts be brought in and ramaged well for contraband goods. All right, so these people were ransacking these Jews. But continuing on, Jews were legitimate slaves. This is coming from the same source. The capture and enslavement of Jews by Europeans encouraged an English residents in Morocco to inquire in 1716 from from the Secretary of State after an English ship had been seized by pirates, whether he may not seize the Moors and Jews inhabitants of Gibraltar by the way of reprisal or reprisal for the cruel uses of British captives. In 1735, Spaniards seized Turks and Jews off an English ship and took them captive. All right, so we keep saying that these Jews were being actually taken captive. Because Jews were part of the North African polities, they were viewed by Europeans as part of the enemy and therefore legitimate slaves. All right, so when people say Jews weren't slaves, just say Jews were legitimate slaves, and you can send them to this source. British captives from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, 1563 through 1760. All right. So again, Jews were legitimate slaves. All right. So here's the next source. Sephardim and slavery in the European economic, 11th through 18th centuries. All right. This is going to be very, very important and very interesting indeed as well. It is incorrect to identify North African and Ottoman slavery as white. So we were just talking about those Jews being enslaved in North Africa. It would be incorrect to identify that as white slavery. Now let's read in the highlighted section where it says, in fact, 48% were white, 25% black, 1% mulatto, 8% Loro, 3% Mimbrilo, Cocho. Therefore, their color was frequently defined in the manuscripts as white, Loro, between black and white, like nearly wheat, and also as Mimbrilo, Chojo, literally cooked quince. But we must not forget that there were also Black Sarcians, and if you know about the Black Sarcians or the Sarcians period, these people are sons of Sarah. All right, that's literally what Sarcian means, sons of Sarah. So the Black sons of Sarah, they were enslaved too. It would be incorrect, therefore, to identify North African and Ottoman slavery as white. So if you go to the left, we will see in the first section of the 15th century, we can see all the slaves that they actually took. And this is coming from, I believe, the Spanish or Spain, the captives they had through the 15th through the 19th century. And we can see that Jews of North Africa, all right, are listed off as slaves they took. 16th through 17th century, we see Jews of North Africa listed off as slaves they took as well. And we also see Moriscos. Now, Moriscos and Iberian Muslims, those are Moors. So they enslaved Moors as well. But if you go down to the other highlighted sections I have where it says Cape Verdeans, Sao Tomeans, Afro-Portuguese, Afro-Spanish, and Afro-Brazilians, those will be other places where these Jews went like Cape Verde and Sao Tome, and they were also known as the Afro-Portuguese, Afro-Spaniards, and Afro-Brazilians. Same thing in the 18th century. We see the same thing again. Cape Verdeans, Sao Tomeans, and people of Guinea-Bissau. You did have a Sephardic Jewish community in Guinea-Bissau as well. And you also had the Afro-Portuguese and Afro-Spaniards and Afro-Brazilians being enslaved as well. And of course, when we're talking about the African Israelites, those will be your sub-Saharan people. All right. And we are not dealing with them in this part. We'll be dealing with them in part 2. All right. So North African Jews had an African character. All right. So just to sum up what these Jews would have looked like, being enslaved from North Africa, and even the Moors or the Black Sarcians. All right. These people would have had an African character. And this is coming from travels in North Africa. All right. It says, even those communities which at a given point in their history received a sudden and large influx of European Jews, all right, or Sephardic Jews, as was the case with the Tunis and Chishmi, have managed to retain their African character thanks to their reinforcement by numbers of the Judeo-Berbers from the interiors. All right. So again, these European Jews, or these Jews that came in from Europe into North Africa, they had an African character. All right. And you already had Jews amongst the Berbers in North Africa, and they had an African character as well. All right. And over here to the right, those are actually pictures of Jews in Morocco. And as you can see, they are black. Let's continue to dig. Lancados, or Jews, forced to return to Europe or be executed by African kings. We're going to start at the highlighted. D. Manuel also had further threats in store for these Lancados. Again, we've already covered who these Lancados are. If you don't know, please go watch my other videos to get that breakdown. All right, so D. Manuel also had further threats in store for those Lancados who were already on the coast in large numbers. On the 15th of March, 1518, all right, so this is in 1518, he commissioned Bernadette or Bernardum Gomez to sail to Guinea and superintend the removal of the Lancados. Those who returned to Europe would be pardoned, although half of their goods would be confiscated and each would be made to contribute 10 cruzados to All the Saints Hospital in Lisbon. All right, so they wanted these Lancados, or they wanted these Jews to leave Western Africa and go back to Europe. All right. But it goes on to say those who refuse to embark for Europe should be executed by the local kings. All right. And we know at this time, these local African kings were selling people into slavery. Gomez was instructed to offer the African rulers their goods of the Lancados and whatever gifts were necessary to assure their complicity in this matter. All right. So if you was a Sephardic Jew in Western Africa at this particular time in this place, and you were not trying to return to Europe, you and your goods, your family, you will be handed over to the African kings, to the local African kings. All right. Whether they were Israelites or Hamites, you would be handed over to them. All right. So Lancados, they owned slaves, but they were enslaved themselves. All right. Just like our ancestors owned slaves, but they were enslaved themselves. All right. And this is coming from the history of the Western Mandinka state throughout the 18th century, starting at the very top. Initially, the Luso-African descendants of Lancados and local Africans, then augmented after the mid-17th century by Anglo and Franco-Africans, and argument too by African commercial auxiliaries who adopted aspects of the Euro-African way of life. The Euro-Africans were what Rodney calls cultural hybrids, all right? And we know these Euro-Africans, that's just what they call Sephardic Jews as well, another byword. But on the other hand, they retained such outward elements of their European background as a Creole, Portuguese language, dress, and religion. On the other, their mother or grandmothers were integrated into the Mandinka cultural complex. All right, so you had some Sephardic Jews amongst the Mandinka as well. So these people would have came through to Americas by way of that as well, if they would have got caught up in the slave trade with the Mandinkas. But it goes on to say many who called themselves Portuguese were indistinguishable to Europeans from the Mandinkas among whom they lived. So when we talking about these Sephardic Jews, these people look like Mandinkas. These people look like Mandi. We know the Mandi are Israelites. But again, it says many of the Luso-Africans who were, rosaries, convoluted Muslim adversaries and healers. It goes on to say some owned African slaves, yet some were slaves of Africans. All right. And that would be your Sephardic Jews that were slaves. So now let's get into the meat. All right. We brought out a little background information. Let's get into the meat and how these people were brought over to America. All right. So I'm going to start at the very top. Spanish Inquisition in Haiti. So it says, while the Taino were living peacefully in their communities, Spain was emerging from 400 years of conquest by the Moors or North Africans, and was in search of resources to restructure and rebuild its empire, which had been rich civilization in which the Arabs and Jews coexisted, and science and knowledge from Africa flourished. All right, because the Arabs and the Jews, they were coming in from Africa, bringing that knowledge with them. All right, but second highlighted, the tropulate unofficiate that resulted in the Spanish Inquisition could be accomplished only by getting rid of the Jews. All right, so they were trying to get rid of these Jews. The Inquisition enabled the successful appropriation of the Jewish property by the Spanish state. All right, so they actually appropriated these people's property. While the Jewish people were forced to convert to Christianity or leave Spain for Turkey under the protection of the Sultan, who sent ships to transport them on March 31st, 1492, the royal couple ensued their general edict on the expulsion of Jews from Argent to Castile. All right, which states, but we're not really finna read that. Well, I can just read it real quick. There is no doubt that the intercourse of Christians with Jews who seek to mislead them to their damnable religion caused them greatest harm. It has led to the debasement of the Catholic faith. We therefore are resolved to expel all Jews of both sexes forever to the border of our kingdom, without distinction of sex or age, and they must depart no later than July of this year. Disregarding this command, they shall be punished by death without trial and confiscated of their wealth. And we know the kids under 14 years old was sold as slaves and sent to Sao Tome, so forth, so on. But this is a hard hitter for those that like to say Columbus was a Jew. All right, Columbus was not of the Jewish nation. All right, a lot of our brothers like to say Columbus was a Jew to, fit the doctrine that Native Americans are Israelites, and that Columbus knew where he was going. He knew that the Native Americans were Israelites, things like this. People like to say that Columbus was an Israelite to fit their doctrine. But Columbus actually did some foul stuff, as we're going to read. Jewish money was indeed, or Jewish money, Black Jewish money was needed to enrich the monarchy and fund Columbus's journey towards the other side of the world. Columbus, for his part, dreamed of navigating in search of new land and new riches. He is often portrayed as a Marrano, a term used to describe Jews and people of North African descent living in Portugal and Spain before the edict that evicted them. However, recent research has placed Columbus's birth in 1434 at Calvi, on the island known today as Corsica, where he grew up in a Catholic faith under the tutelage of the Franciscan order of that island. He was a member of an elite family and studied navigation. All right, so this man was not a Jew. Now it gets real choppy because it says this: Columbus took Jewish money. All right, so Columbus took Jewish money, and Jews and Africans were sold together. Actually, I need to go back so we can read this through. Salakia family. We're gonna continue to read from where I ended the highlighted section. It says at that time, Corsica was a province of Genoa, known as Italy today, which may account for the past historians misplacing Columbus' origin as Genoa. In addition, Jewish historian Rosenberg, Columbus charted his way westward by studying Abraham Pretul Almanac, appointed as an interpreter Louis de Torres, a Jew hastily baptized Catholic just before the departure. All right, Louis de Torres knew Hebrew, Chaldean, and Arabic, and this is what our brothers say too. See, he knew Hebrew, so he Columbus brought a Hebrew interpreter with him so he can speak with the Native Americans, right? And again, that's false too. But it says Columbus' second voyage in 1492 was financed by the royal treasury funds derived from the sale of confiscated Jewish property. All right, and where his third and fourth ships silent and moral issues which he could not, or which he could do nothing to influence. Columbus took the Jewish money and sailed. All right, so actually Columbus was financed, by these people that confiscated our ancestors' money. All right, those of us who have Sephardic ancestry. All right, so they took the Sephardic money, confiscated their goods, confiscated their property, and handed it over to Columbus so he can sail to America. All right, so Columbus took Jewish money. Now, starting at the second highlighted, it says the early Spanish slave trade may have been half white and half black. Jewish captives in the continual war against Moorish cities and Muslim slaves were sold in the Valencia market. This may account for Jews and Africans sold in the slave markets in the earlier years before the Spanish invasion of the New World. All right. Second highlighted, Christianity was instrumental in the disbasement of the slave trade. Politics and greed were the dynamic forces that the church and feudal Europe used to enrich themselves using brutal techniques borrowed from their own European feudal system to implement the slave system in the Caribbean. All right. So again, Jews and Africans were sold as slaves together. Starting at the very top. According to Thomas, European slavery occurred differently in different religious contexts. For example, Christian law did not permit Jews that were Christians as slaves, although many Jews were slaves with Africans in the Spanish markets. All right. Although many Jews were slaves with Africans in the Spanish markets. All right. Skip it down to the second highlighted. For the Africans enslaved by Europeans, slavery was much worse. No law or human consideration took into account their misery. And they were beasts of burdens and non-humans in the eyes of the European powers. Henry Clark maintains that Europe took full advantage of wars and conflicts between West African nations and began purchasing the captives and prisoners of war as slaves. And I actually added this in here just to show you what was actually going on during the time that they came and got us from slavery. That they came and got us from Western Africa. Because as it says, the Europeans, they took full advantage of the wars and conflicts between West African nations. All right. So we was actually going to war and they started purchasing captives and prisoners of wars and selling them as slaves. All right. But it goes on to say that kind of slavery that the Europeans was about to introduce in West Africa had no relationship to the African system of indentured servitude. So Jews taken to Haiti as slaves. The European Christians arrived in 1492 already accustomed to slavery, as described above, and they cold-bloodedly enslaved the indigenous people who lived on the island. All right, so Arsenigus explained that at the beginning of the conquest, every Spaniard was allowed to take with him an enslaved person from his European community. And the number rose later to 20 people per Spaniard. All right, so at that time, Jews purchased from the slave market were taken to Haiti. All right, and these would be your Sephardim Jews that was purchased in the slave market and taken to Haiti. All right, and just make sure you stick around because we're going to wrap this up in a real nice bow here soon. All right, we're going to wrap this up in a real nice bow here soon. So again, we do have evidence of these Jews being brought to the Western world. And then it will actually make sense that they will be bringing Jews over here because like it says, it was allowed that Spaniards was allowed to take with him enslaved persons from his European community. We know a lot of these Jews were enslaved in Spain and Portugal before being brought over here anyways. All right. So next source we're going to go to is Atlantic Africa and the Spanish Caribbean, 1570 through 1640. And before we even read this, I want to read this quote right here from the Iberian magazine. And it says, and from these Spanish Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called. All right. So when the Jews were expelled into Western Africa, they were actually known as the Black Portuguese. And that's going to be very important for what we're about to read. All right. So it says, rather than being confined to slave ship holds, some sub-Saharan Africans crossed the Atlantic as sailors, domestic slaves, or servants on slave voyages. Other slave ships travelers were Luso-Africans. All right, we know who these Luso-Africans are. Individuals of Iberian ancestry who were born or lived for a extended period in Western Africa, or people of African or Afro-Iberian descent, born or raised in Iberian societies in Africa. All right. The latter were usually described as Portuguese blacks, Portuguese mulattoes, Black Creoles of Cape Verde, or Black Creoles of Sao Tome. All right. The Jews were expelled to Sao Tome. The Jews were expelled to Cape Verde. The Jews, when they was expelled to Western Africa, they were known as the Black Portuguese. All right. So when we see people being described, when we see slaves being described as Afro-Portuguese or Portuguese blacks or Black Creoles, we know who they are. We would know that they aren't, I guess you can say, regular, quote unquote, West African, Sub-Saharan African peoples. All right. And of course, that word mulatto is used lightly because I actually have a source that we're going to bring out later, and it's going to let us know that mulattoes were considered light-skinned blacks. So a lot of the time they weren't mixed. They were just light-skinned blacks. But continuing. Luso-African domestic slaves and servants. In addition to trade, captives, the San George passengers and crew members brought Luso-African domestic slaves and servants, including several free sub-Saharan Africans who bore Iberian given names and surnames. All right. It can't get more spot on than that. All right. Again, we know these Luso-Africans are descendants of Jews. They came to the Caribbeans as slaves, as servants. All right. And you even had people coming over who were free, who had Iberian names and surnames. And we know that this will come from the Sephardim as well. So starting at the highlighted, it says early 17th century, or in early 17th century Cartagena, Jesuit missionary Alonso de Sandoval mentioned a slave ship arriving with 12 or 14 Latinos who became guarding the rest. All right, so we see Latinos were coming in as well. Again, that's just another byword. All right, that's just another byword for the Sephardim. So freemen and slaves from Cape Verde. All right, the San George Voice to Espanol provides another example of a readily discernible Luso-African presence, all right, Luso-African Sephardic descended presence in the early Spanish Caribbean. Several free and enslaved people of color on the ship were natives of Cape Verde Islands, all right, especially the island of Santo de Cabo Verde. Among the Black Marines arriving in Espanol on the San George in 1575, a number were originally born or raised in the Cape Verde Islands. And I always like to bring this video out as just a quick source from somebody in Cape Verde, letting you know who they are themselves. All right. So I'm just going to play this video right quick just to verify that these people coming from Cape Verde would have had Israelite ancestry. All right. And just give me a second, and here we go.
What's the language of Cape Verde?
Cape Verde. In Cape Verde, the language in Cape Verde, we call it Creole. Creole is an ancient language. Let me say, for all the Latin-speaking countries in the world, this Latin language, Creole, what we call Creole in West Coast Africa, is the oldest Latin language in the world. A lot of people don't know about this, but it starts in Cape Verde Islands. Creole, we call it Creole. Like you say, when you're in America, you call it Latinos. But the Latinos, this derived from Ladinos, the ancient Israelites. You know, from Israel, from North Africa. And then after persecution of the empires that come to North Africa, like in Eritrea, in Ethiopia, and North Africa, Libya, Morocco, Tunisia, all those places, even Portugal, Spain, Italy, we leave to this kind of islands that we call now Cape Verde Islands on the west coast of Africa, because they persecute us, they want to kill us. We live there. But our originality, we come from Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, all those places, Israel, the ancient Israel, not the Israel that we see now.
What's the religion there? This is the last question. What's the
All right, family. So, like the brother said, he basically just verified a lot that I've brought out already. They are known as Latinos at Cape Verde. All right. They actually speak a Creole language. They were the first people to come up with this Creole language. A lot of Cape Verdeans, they're known as Latinos or Creoles or Luso Africans. And he also said they come from Spain and Portugal, like we've been bringing out again. So when we're talking about these Cape Verdeans, these Luso Africans, these Latinos, these Portuguese blacks, please, please, please understand who we're talking about, family. But let's continue. All right, so slaves from Sephardic exile locations, Cape Verde, Sao Tome. Let's read. Although early colonial Spanish Caribbean sources mention African lands and nations with much greater frequencies, references to African descended Creoles from the Cape Verde Islands, all right? Creoles or Criollos de Cabo Verde and Sao Tome, Criollos de Sao Tome are not uncommon. So these slaves coming from this location was not uncommon. For example, 24-year-old Francisca, a Creole from Cabo Verde, was sold into Havana during the late 1570s. An enslaved black woman named Francisca de Cabo Verde, possibly the same person, had her newborn son baptized in Havana in 1593. Two enslaved women identified as um, Antona de Sao Tome and Maria de Sao Tome served as godmothers for newly baptized African women during the same decade. Cape Verdeans and Sao Tomeans of African descent also lived in Cartagena. A Creole from Sao Tome named Juliana was an enslaved black woman in her late 20s, owned by the city's disclaimed Carm Elite Covenant. All right, so it's actually owned by some pretty high statured people within a covenant. But it goes on to say she and her husband Geronimo Angola both gave testimony in an investigation conducted in 1609. In his treasury of slavery, Sandanova denoted several lines from Creole from Cape Verde Islands and Sao Tome, and during the mid-17th century, enslaved opponents Manuel de Cabo Verde and Marina de Cabo Verde testified to the charitable and miraculous deeds performed by Sandova's colleagues, Pedro Claver. All right. So again, that's just to bring out examples of these Jews being brought into the Americas. Again, you have Sao Tomeans, you have Cape Verdeans, all right, and we know that these people will descend from these Jews because these islands wasn't even inhabited until these Jews showed up. And we brought out the genetics of these people as well. They are related to us. So there you go. Black slaves described as Portuguese. Starting to highlight it. Although Spanish blacks are occasionally mentioned, most Afro-Iberians in the early colonial Spanish Caribbean were described as Portuguese. All right, they were described as Portuguese. What did the Iberian magazine tell us? That the Jews that were exiled or expelled to Western Africa, they were known as what? The Black Portuguese. Thus, in the late 1570s, two enslaved men sold in Havana each were described as a black slave and as Portuguese. Skip it to the next highlighted. At the same time, Afro-Iberians were more likely than sub-Saharan Africans to arrive in the Spanish Caribbean as free people of color, right? And that's because they were actually some Sephardic Jews. A lot of these people had money, things of that sort. They were involved in trade. They had businesses. We've brought this out. But among the free black Gramantes arriving in Hispaniola on the San George in 1575, Antonio Sorobero was from the Algarve in southern Portugal. All right, so you even had blacks coming from Portugal into the Spanish Caribbeans. Another free black man from Truro, Portugal, named Antonio de Contrias, was a witness in legal proceedings in Cartagena in 1583. 2 decades later in Havana, Mateo Marino Español, or Mateo Spanish Black, who was not identified as a slave, and Juan Portuguese Marino Horo, Juan Free Black Portuguese, each served as godfathers at the baptism of enslaved women. All right, so again, these black slaves that were described as Afro-Portuguese, these would be descendants of your Sephardim. Once more. All right, so the second slave trade surge brought large numbers of Luso-Africans to the Spanish Caribbean. In Cartagena, the flow of Portuguese migrants apparently never abated during the early 17th century. A second slave trade surge lasting from the late 1610s throughout the first half of the 1620s brought even larger numbers of Portuguese and Luso-Africans to the city. All right. All right. And we know these Luso-Africans will be Sephardim. And I know I'm sounding redundant. I know I keep repeating myself, but it has to be repeated for the people tuning in, for the people coming in late, and for the people who just don't know who or what a Luso-African is or what a Latino is. I have to keep reiterating myself. All right. So Portuguese blacks worked alongside diasporic Africans. All right. Yes. I agree. It has to be repeated, because sometimes, no matter how many times you say it, people still just don't get it. They just do not get it. But again, Portuguese blacks worked alongside diasporic Africans, starting at the highlighted. And again, don't get too offended by the word African. And before we even continue, what we're going to notice is, you had these blacks coming out of Europe. They was actually known as Jews. All right. They were known as Jews. But when you go to the African side, these people, these Europeans, these Spaniards, and things like that, they called our people Africans, although they weren't Africans, although they did practice Judaism, although they do have these Hebrewic influences, although they do have these Hebrew names, although they do tell you they come from these certain tribes of Israel, they still call them Africans. All right, that's really why I wanted to divide this video up into two sections, to just break it down and show you, how we have Israelites coming from both sides. All right, from Europe and from Africa. But let's go ahead to read. Start at the highlighted. It says, despite and in large because of the direct participation in the enslavement and displacement of African captives, Tango Mas, all right, and Luso-Africans entered the Caribbean, having experienced social proximity to Africans and cultural exchange that would have been foreign to most passengers arriving directly from Iberia on the Indies fleet. Although much of their knowledge was used to further their own interests, even Portuguese and Luso-African migrants who grew wealthy through the slave trafficking continued to show signs of their familiarity with Africans and African cultures. All right, and we're not dealing with we're not dealing with, I guess you can say, how these people had slaves. I guess you can say we're not dealing with that. We're just dealing with how they were enslaved right alongside with us. But it goes on to say, in the settlements throughout the Spanish Caribbean, individuals described as Portuguese blacks or Afro-Portuguese Creoles worked alongside diasporic Africans as fellow slaves and free people of colors. All right, so you had Afro-Portuguese, Portuguese blacks working alongside Africans, just like the other source told us earlier. You had Jews working alongside Africans. These Jews are the Portuguese black. All right, these Jews are the Afro-Portuguese. It says others also described as Portuguese supervised African laborers as overseers on farms and on pearl fishing canoes, and some lived on terms of greater intimacy, becoming godparents, sexual partners, or spouses for first generation African migrants and their children. So you even had some of these Sephardic Jews or Luso-Africans or Afro-Portuguese becoming, godparents, sex partners, or spouses of these so-called African migrants or slaves. All right. So that's very important as well. So we just went through two good books that, give us a lot of information. And we're about to get ready and wrap this up in a nice bow. All right. And bring it all together. But next source we're going to go to is Hybrid Hate, Tudor Prophet. And it's we're gonna get into some information from this book. Before we get into it, we have to realize that Jews were put to work in the Caribbean alongside their black brothers. This actually happened. All right, and I've actually showed you this throughout this video. These people were sent to the Caribbean. But it starts at the highlight, and it says Michaelis argued that in Prussia there was no use for the Jews. They could not readily be made productive or beneficial, but they could be transformed into rather more useful Negroes. All right. So when we've been talking about Jews this whole time, we've been talking about Negroes, family. We haven't been talking about Europeans. We've been talking about Negroes. Let me read that again. Michaels argued that in Prussia, there was no use for the Jews. They could not readily be productive or beneficial, but they could be transformed into rather more useful Negroes. All right. If only Prussia owned sugar islands, he lamented, Jews could be put to work in the Caribbean, where their non-European origins as a southern race of Asiatic refugees would enable them to engage in hard labor alongside their black brothers in unhealthy climates of the slave colonies. The question is, who are these southern race Asiatic refugees? Who are these Sephardic Jews? What do they mean by alongside their black brothers? Was this author literally telling us that Sephardic Jews and quote unquote Africans are related? As it says, he lamented that Jews could be put to work in the Caribbean, where their non-European origin as a southern race of Asiatic refugees would enable them to engage in hard labor alongside their black brothers in the unhealthy climate of the slave colonies. All right. And you even have sources where Sephardic Jews called slaves their brothers. You even have sources where you have Sephardic Jews calling the African community their own or one and the same as them. All right. But continuing on to the second highlighted, it says, at the same time, Jews in Europe and the United States were being understood to have in black blood, and the model of American treatment of blacks was inspiring attitudes towards Europe's Jews. Black ethnic groups throughout Africa, indeed people of color throughout the world, were being understood, all right, were being understood and explicated in every remote corner of the colonized world as having Jewish blood, all right. But the very important thing to take from this source, all right, this is one of my favorite sources. It lets you know that these Jews were engaged in hard labor right alongside their black brothers, right alongside those quote unquote Africans, all right, as they like to call us. And here's one more source. Jews should be settled overseas in plantations, all right, in slave plantations. So it says, while colonized blacks and African slaves in the United States were being constructed or were constructing themselves as Jews. So you even had blacks in America constructing themselves as Jews, but we're going to get into that next video. Jews were being inserted into the category of colonized blacks. All right, why was that? In 1782, Michael proposed that Jews who could not a priori be assimilated into the Prussian state should be, like black African slaves, be settled overseas in the slave plantations. All right, so this is what they were saying about Jews. All right, they were saying, man, we should ship them people over to America so they can be slaves with their black brothers. And this is what they did. They literally were saying we should ship these Jews to America so they can be slaves with their black brothers. All right. I literally brought out a source in the beginning telling you that these Europeans, they actually preferred black Iberians as slaves. All right. Well, let's continue. I'll skip one. So you even have free blacks or a free black from Angola, tried by the Inquisition. All right. And this is coming from the source to the left. We're going to start at the highlighted. And it says, this was Marina Pecuni or Pequina. I don't speak Spanish, so forgive me. A free black woman who came from Angola. All right, we know the Sephardic Jews ended up in Angola as well. But it says Marina was denounced by 12 accused new Christians, 4 men and 8 women who were interrogated during the spring and summer of 1711. Following the prisoners' confessions, ordered were sent to Rio de Janeiro to arrest Marina Pecuna. In October 1712, the inquisitors received her in Lisbon and her trial commenced. All right. And the only way you can be imprisoned or sent to the Inquisition or taken, I guess you can say being arrested by the Inquisition or sent to trial by the Inquisition is if you're practicing Judaism. All right. This was actually set up for the Sephardic Jews. So if you was getting caught practicing Judaism, you was killed, you was in prison. All right. This is what was going on. This is why they converted these people to Christianity. But we can continue on and we can see that other quote unquote Africans were accused of practicing Judaism by the Inquisition. So it says, although Maria Pequena was the only African-born individual in prison in Rio de Janeiro for Judaism, there were 8 descendants of Africans among the accused. One of them, Maria de Andrade, was in prison at the same time as Maria Pequena, while the rest were taken to Lisbon between 1714 and 1716. 5 of them were men. Some of these individuals were slaves or freed slaves. All right. So you had slaves and freed slaves being tried by the Inquisition. That means they were practicing Judaism. All right. Second highlighted section. It says, in addition to those arrested in Rio de Janeiro, a tentative search of the Inquisition trials in Lisbon revealed that 2 other African women and 6 descendants of Africans accused of Judaism, raising the total number of cases to 17. All right. So far within what they were able to find, you had 17 quote unquote Africans. And again, more than likely, these were Sephardic Jews. All right. They could have been West African Israelites, because we know they practice Judaism as well. So they could have easily got caught up in the Inquisition. But we know that this Inquisition was set out specifically for these Black Sephardic Jews. And something very important at the very bottom that we need to read, because a lot of people like to say that we were converted to Judaism by our slave masters, but there's really no evidence for that. There's no evidence of a mass conversion of white slave masters converting Black slaves to Judaism. But it says there are no identifications or there are no indications of mass conversions of Africans to Judaism in Brazil. All right. So there are no indications of mass conversions of Africans to Judaism in Brazil. But again, the very important thing to take from this is that 17 Blacks, 17 Africans, as they like to call them, were tried by the Inquisition for practicing Judaism in Brazil. Let's continue on. So we have examples of Sephardic slaves or Sephardic indentured servants, and one of those peoples is Matthias de Sousa. All right, so we have a Sephardic indentured servant, and we have the source to the left, the flowering of Marion. All right, and we're gonna start at the top, and it says when Fernando Pulton demanded land rights in 1639 for a number of transportees, which had been assigned him by Father White. Among the names was Matthias Sousa, a mulatto. All right, a mulatto. Second highlighted, it says Sousa apparently served Father White according to his contract as an indentured servant. All right, or of indentureship. All right, so he was indentured servant to Father White. Now going to the third highlighted, or matter of fact, going to the beginning of the footnotes where it says Benjamin H. Hortengenesis. All right, Benjamin H. Hortengenesis, a second generation American of Dutch Jewish origin, writing in his studies of or in the American history of Maryland, attempts to prove that he was a Portuguese Jewish aristocrat and referred to him as Matthias de Sousa. According to his dark complexion, he was therefore listed as mulatto. So he wasn't even mixed. He was just dark, family. So we dealing with these earlier sources and they're calling people mulatto. Please do not think black and white. Don't think mixed. Sousa was the first Jew to settle in Maryland, and he was black, and he was an indentured servant. Sausa was the first Jew to settle in Maryland, but was forced to conceal his origin and faith on account of religious prejudice. All right, because they know if he would have, flat out say he was a Jew, he would have been tried by the Inquisition, like we just saw in the previous sources. All right. And again, another source to show that Matthias de Sausa was a Jew is the next one I'm about to go to. But before I do that, I forgot to mention, if you look at this to the left, that picture right there, that's actually a depiction of him. All right. He got a chain on, he got his little cap on. You see the broad nose, you see the thick lips, you see the cheekbones. All right. So we get what's going on and why they would call him I guess you can say African Jew, as some sources do. But indexes of the publications of American Jewish History Society, Sosa, Matthias de Sosa, early settler in Maryland, all right, possibly Jewish, all right, he was Jewish, and he was black, and he was one of the first Jews to come into America, and he was indeed an indentured servant. We even have information of the first Jew in, I believe, what is that, New Hampshire? He was called a mulatto Jew as well. All right, so you have these early Sephardic Jews in America. They was all black, from what I'm seeing. We have another example of a Sephardic Jew, or a man coming over by way of slavery. Sephardic Jew coming to America by way of the slave trade. And this is from an article. Rabbi Abel Raspeet spent a lifetime urging Jews of color to discover their roots. So it says, born in 1919 to a poor black family in North Philadelphia. He grew up with a vague understanding of his religious background. His mother told him that the Bible was written in, his mother told him that their Bible was written in a different language, all right? And his grandmother observed Jewish customs and told him that their people worshiped in secret in the past, all right? And we know the Jews, or the Morenos, or the Conversos, or the New Christians, they had to worship Yah in secret. They had to practice Judaism in secret. So he says, I remember my father, who read the Bible but never went to church, telling me when I was 13 and I should have been bar mitzvah, we're different from other Negroes. We're Jews. All right. And he told this to the New York Times in 1978. He goes on to drop out of school at 16 and work odd jobs to help his family. All right. At 28, he was finally motivated to research his Jewish roots. All right, so going to the second highlighter, this says researching his Spanish last name. All right, and he even had a Spanish last name all the way up to the, I guess you can say, 20th century when it was. So researching his Spanish last name led him to the stories of the Morenos, or Jews who practiced in secret during the Spanish Inquisition. His studies indicated he was descended from Morenos, also known as crypto Jews, who fled persecution and may have resettled in North and West Africa. All right. I don't showed you Sephardic Jews being enslaved in North and West Africa and being brought to the American colonies. So he said specifically that he felt that if this was a possibility for his family, a person of color in the United States, then maybe there were many other families who sort of lost their way and were crypto Jews because of circumstances such as the slave trade. Family, like, come on now. So there's a lot of Sephardic Jews out there that just don't know it. There's a lot of Sephardic Jews out there that think, we come from West African tribes. You know what I'm saying? We might be Igbo, we might be a Khan, we might be Yoruba. When actuality, you come from Spain, you come from Portugal, you come from these communities. Not saying that there's a big difference between the European Jews and African Jews, because they will have the same genetics, but if you want to know your genealogy, your history, your ancestry, that'll be something good to know. You know what I'm saying? But the Negro in the New World, Sir Harry Johnston. Where should we start? We're going to start at the very top. Family. It says, after the Spaniards had conquered finally the whole of the Canary archipelago, and achieved which only preceded the. I hate this new StreamYard update, family, because it blocks off stuff in the right corner when I'm trying to read. So because I can't see that, because of the StreamYard logo is in my way, let's just start at the highlighted. It says, besides also recalent Moorish Jews from Majorca, Jews and Moriscos from southern Spain. Well, actually, let me read that over because that don't even make sense when we just starting right there. So let's get this into some context, family. So it's going to say, after the Spaniards had conquered finally the whole Canary archipelago and achieved which only preceded the drove of America by a few years, they dispatched to Hispaniola, Cuba, and Puerto Rico Guanche slaves, the indigenes of Canary Islands, besides also, all right, recalcitrant Moorish Jews, all right, Jews and Moriscos from southern Spain. So they also brought Moorish Jews and Moriscos, all right, these ain't nothing but Moors and Jews. They brought these people from southern Spain and they dispatched them to Hispaniola, Cuba, and Puerto Rico, all right. And if we go down to the bottom in the footnotes, what a highlighted section is, it says, this is the reason why Blackamoor in English, Moreno in Dutch, Marina in German, or Moro in Spanish or Portuguese in Italian, and Mariscanda in French were early names for Negroes. All right, Negro, a Spanish word, did not come into common use in England till the 19th century. All right, so when we go back up to the top and it's talking about these Morisco, these Jews and these Moorish Jews being brought into Hispaniola, Cuba, and Puerto Rico, these people were Negroes, all right? Negro Jews and Negro Moors. All right. Let's dig into that though. It's funny because I've always brought this source out, but I've never done any digging into it, all right? But again, this is a famous source. I always used to use this, but it says the Jewish hybrid with the Negro in Jamaica and Guinea reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. But to start off, it says the Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negro strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye proportions of the skull, and the Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica and Guinea reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. And to your right is a picture of a Negro from Jamaica. All right. This is where it gets important, all right? So Negro / mulatto, Spanish and Portuguese Jews in Guyana. And before I read the page, I want to read a source. It says many of the Jews were mulattoes of the 4th degree. That is very light-skinned blacks, all right? You can find that in Jews and Blacks in the Early Modern World, Jonathan Scorch, page 183, all right? So many of the Jews were mulattoes. That is very light-skinned blacks. So when we go to this source and we read, starting at the very top, it says on the Legislative Council of today, only 4 of the elected members are of unmixed Nordic European descent. 4 are of well-known Jamaican Jewish families, descended from the Spanish and Portuguese Jews of Guyana and Brazil. 1 member is of absolute Negro. All right, this is a Jew. This is people from Jewish families. 1 member is of absolute Negro, and the remainder 5 are octoroons and mulattoes of Jamaican birth. All right, and again, a mulatto is simply nothing but a light-skinned black, and an octoroon, that's literally someone who's like 1/8 black. Like you have a black ancestor, but now you white type stuff. That's what an octoroon is. So that's even letting us know that these Sephardic Jews that would have came initially were black. But going down to the footnote, it says this is the reason why at the present day, not only are Spaniards and Portuguese names very common amongst the apparently white and English inhabitants of Jamaica, but why not a few rather handsome, Moorish looking Negroes, equally bear hearing high sound Spaniard names. All right. So even these Moorish looking Negroes in Jamaica, have these Sephardic names. All right. And again, it just told us that these Jews of these well-known Jamaican and Brazilian Jewish families, they were Negro and mulatto. And to your right is a mulatto woman of Dutch Guinea. All right. She's very beautiful and she doesn't look mixed to me. All right. She just looked like a light-skinned black. Right. So again, this is very important because it let us know that these Sephardic Jewish families in Jamaica, Guyana, and Brazil, they were of Negroid descent. All right. Nature knows no color line. We're going to get a quick reference to what we just brought out. Many of the Jews who were banished from Portugal by John II settled in the West Indies. John Bigelow, who visited Jamaica in 1850, he saw these descendants and he said that they were Negroid. So we're talking about these Sephardic Jews, these Luso-Africans, all these people, constituted under a byword coming into America by way of slaves. They were all Negroid. All right. So we see everything is lining up with what we've been bringing out. And again, this is the actual documentation that John Bigelow wrote himself in 1850. And it's called Jamaica in 1850, where he's talking about those Sephardic Jews. And it starts at the top. It says Kingston contains about 40,000 inhabitants, present 9/10 of whom are at least colored. All right, that's 90%. 90% in 1850 was black or colored. In walking the streets, one sacredly meets a white person. All right, so in walking the street, one scarcely meets a white person as frequently as he would meet colored persons in New York City. The whites are mostly English or of English descent. The proportion of Jews of all color is fearfully great. I had never seen a black Jew before, and I was astonished to find how little the expression of the Israelitish profile was affected by the color. My imagination could never have combined the sharp and calming features of Isaac with the thick-lipped, careless, unthinking countenance of Cujo. But nature has done it perfectly, if that can be called a combination in which the Negro furnishes the color and the Jew all the rest of the expression. All right. So these Jews within the Jamaica, man, these people were Negro. So at that point, how would you be able to distinguish a Sephardic Jew from an African slave, from a quote unquote descendant of a slave? All right. So the Jewish heritage survives in the black-skinned inhabitants. All right. And this is coming from Jamaica. All right. So Jamaicans with Jewish family names. Starting at the highlighted, it says, yet the island's Jewish heritage mysteriously survives in the family names of black-skinned inhabitants. All right. And it wouldn't mysteriously survive. We would expect to see this, especially after what we just brought out, man. We brought out enough information to show you these people came by way of slaves. All right. They was called Afro-Portuguese. They had Spanish-Portuguese names, blah, blah, blah. All right. So again, yet the island's Jewish heritage mysteriously survives in the family names of the black-skinned inhabitants. Henriquez adds, this leads him to believe that Jamaicans with names like Levy, Cohen, Da Costa, De Sousa, and even his own, Henriquez, must have some Jewish heritage, even if they do not know about it. All right. And we're going to wrap it up with that. All right. So, if anybody has any questions, comments, anything to add, you know what I'm saying, please drop it in the chat. All right. This was a pretty good video, man. This was a pretty good informational video. Well needed to basically show that these people were enslaved. We went over a lot, about 40 something sources. All right. Showing you how these people were described in Jamaica, showing you how they got there and things of that sort. All right. So we went through a lot, man. And of course, if you need these sources, I got you. Shalom, family. These octoroons sound like the descendants of the children of Sao Tome who were originally from Portugal. Yes, 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 it's possible. But again, if you just Google what the word octoroon means, it'll tell you, like, I believe 1/8 of black. And even I've brought out pictures of what the Jews from Sao Tome look like. All right. And they are black, black, brown people. All right. Again, just a preview of what we resummation of what we went through. All right. Brought out the black Latinos, brought out what Ladino means. Just brought us a lot of information, man. A lot of information. But I'm gonna stop going through that. But again, family, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. I also have a couple videos I want to share that I didn't get to share in the beginning, or I actually forgot to share. But here's a video just verifying the fact that Jews were the first slaves in America. All right. Sephardic Jews, and they were black. And we have a black descendant right here. That's actually going to be in this video. So let me see if I can find it real quick. All right, here we go.
A little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered because they went west.
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands.
And you're one of them. I know that.
One of them.
I know that.
Because, a lot of folk don't know that those roots of them were the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica. They were the Sephardic Jews. It's the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica. They were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over the Caribbean, South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
So like you said, it's documented that the Sephardic Jews were the first first batch of slaves to come into America. And they were those people who were called Latinos. And even that black man right there, he told you he's one of them. All right, he's one of them. It's like it's a lot of black Sephardic Jews in America, and so forth, so on. Says, great video, brother. Thank you. I've seen some of these sources before. Good. So I know that we are on point and coming to one accord with the rest of the diaspora. Thanks, brother. All right. Shalom, and thank you for tuning in. And yes, we are very on point. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got these sources repeating the same thing in different ways, and things like that. All these sources is just overlapping each other. All right. They overlapping each other. My family always said we came as slaves from Europe. I'm Haitian as well. Well, there you have it. There you have it. You can very well be a descendant from those Sephardic Jews that were brought from Haiti. As this source just said, that were brought to Haiti. Here we go right here. Let me bring it out for you one more time. Bring it out for you one more time. Because we have stuff like this that just adds up. Second highlight, at that time, Jews were purchased from the slave markets and were taken to Haiti. All right. These people were taken to Haiti as slaves as well. I had a classmate from school from Jamaica with the last name Cohen. Yes. A lot of Cohens in Jamaica. It's a lot of Cohens in Jamaica. There's a lot of Cohens in what is it? I guess you could say Charleston, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia. You have a lot of black Cohen football players. These would be, I believe for good reasoning, that these people would be descendants of Sephardic Jews. And I even have I guess you can say, what is it called? I'm gonna see if I can pull it up just to go with what you just said real quick, because I think it'll go with what you just said. Just showing that you had Cohens coming into America. They were being listed as mulatto, but again, that doesn't mean that they were, I guess you could say, mixed. I want to bring out a quick source real quick, just to go with that. You got a lot of Cohens. Let's see. 1 second. See if I can find this source real quick. Let's see where it is. All right, Salakia family. Really want to bring that source out real quick. But if I can't find it, I'm not going to worry about it. All right, here we go. So I'm going to share my screen regarding the Cohen information. Just to show you, we have an even bigger connection with the, I guess you can say Cohen surname than we know. Share my screen. All right. So even here in this book, Free Blacks and Mulattoes in South Carolina, 1850, we can see that you had a lot of Cohens, all right, listed in these census, all right. And of course, it's funny that they listed all these people as mulattoes. I've never seen a mulatto family, right? I've never seen a family full of mulattoes, but they listed all these Cohens off as mulatto. And even when you come over here, you have the Costas, and it says that these Costas were coming from Ireland. And I did a little background history on these Costas, and these actually were a prominent Sephardic Jewish family in Ireland and even in South Carolina. But to continue on with that Black DaCosta, with that Cohen information, let me just bring out one more thing. All right. And this is coming from an article called The Black Cohens. All right. Literally called The Black Cohens. See if I can put this in full screen. Yeah, I can. And it says about 42 or 424,000 modern Jamaicans are said to be descendants from that old Sephardic family. Thousands and thousands of Jamaicans emerged to the United States over the centuries, and many were named Cohen. That's a source of Black Cohens, all right? According to the obituary that ran in the Washington Post in 2011, Mr. Cohen was raised Catholic, often had to explain how he acquired his last name. So he had to explain. He had to explain why did he have this Jewish last name. I guess a lot of white people wanted to know. All right, so which is typically associated with people of Jewish origin. According to family lore, the name derived from a group of Black Jews who settled in Jamaica. All right, so that's really going with what you just brought out, brother, or just said. So thank you for that. Let's see. Hey, guy, I'm Ashkenazi Jew with distant Sephardic ancestry. They weren't Black. I don't want to do this today, but since you said it, this the boy Shlomo. I really don't have time for you. The Jews or the Ashkenazi Jews, they aren't real Jews, man. Majority of y'all not. The only people within the Ashkenazi community that you can consider to be Jews, that you can consider to be Semites, are the 20% that have haplogroup E. Majority of you Ashkenazim descend from, you literally descend from Iranians, Caucasians, Turks. You all are not authentic Israelites, my brother. I can care less if you're Ashkenazi, because you're not the real people. We can bring out sources on this all day and just show you how you're not the real people. I can bring out a source right now where it tells you that you had Black Ashkenazis and you had white Ashkenazis. So who was the real one? You had Black Ashkenazis and you had white Ashkenazis. So who was the real ones? All right. More than likely, that's where you all got that 20% haplogroup E from. More than likely, those Black Jews converted you all when you all were converted. All right. And Shlomo, if you want, buddy, we can do this. We can do this, bro. We can do this. All right. He's now a doctor in Atlanta, married to a white lady. All right. Well, that's good. He's a doctor. That's good. He's a doctor. Do you have this book, Jewish Autonomy in Slave Society? Got a figure on page 11. I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I have that book. Did I bring that source out? Dorville, did I bring that source out? Can you let me know if I brought that source out? Thank you, man. It's really that simple. There were converts of Sephardic Jews that are not ethnically related to Israelites, Shlomo. All right. And even if we get into the genetic studies of the Sephardic Jews that were exiled to Cape Verde, that were exiled to Sao Tome, these people didn't have haplogroups J. They didn't have haplogroup R. They had haplogroup E. All right. Read the book series, The Negro Question by Laura Cumming, that will explain the Ireland part of the Negro. All right. Our people was in Europe too. And yes, I agree. I agree with that. You even had Jews in Ireland of Sephardic ancestry that was called Black Bastards. All right. The brother says if you have E1B1A, then you can be ethnically Jewish, Shlomo. Anyone without haplogroup E cannot even be Semitic. And yes, I agree with that, man. I'm not even about to indulge into that because this brother always seems to come in on my videos when I'm not talking about genetics and wants to run his mouth. All right. And he says, actually, please show me the black Ashkenazim versus the white Ashkenazim. That's very interesting. All right. And the brother Dorville said, no, I did not have that book. Oh, I did not bring out that source. Okay. I'm going to look at the email, brother. Thank you. But while I'm still looking at the chat, continue to drop your questions and everything. I'm about to see if I can bring out a quick source real quick. I'm about to see if I can bring out a quick source real quick. And this will be the last time I deal with people interrupting the lives, talking about stuff we're not talking about or trying to disprove who we are. Because again, I'm not here to prove who we are to no white person. I'm not here to prove who we are to a Gentile. I'm not here to prove who we are to a Japhetic convert. I'm here to prove who we are. I'm here to show the history to my people. So if you dislike what I'm bringing out, you can easily leave. I can care less about what an Ashkenazi thinks when they're not even a real people. But again, let me see if I can find a quick source. Give me a few minutes, family. Looking through some archives. All right. So let me go ahead and get ready and share this. So now I'm about to share my screen and I'm about to just bring out the information on the black Ashkenazim and the white Ashkenazim. I'm gonna answer the rest of the questions in the chat, and then we're gonna get out of here, family. But again, you had black Ashkenazim, you had white Ashkenazim. Who was the real one? And yes, Bantu, Yoruba, Ashanti, Igbo, Lemba, Fulani, they are all sons of Shem. If you have haplogroup E, you are a son of Shem. We do not believe Japhet is a Shemite. It is interesting how we find ancient J samples in the Bronze Age Israel, and they're autosomally similar to the E samples, but they're Iranians according to you. Yes, because these genetic studies would tell you that haplogroup J migrated into the Levant. These papers would tell you that haplogroup J is Iranian, that it came from the Caucasus. These genetic papers will tell you that the Levant was dominated by haplogroup E until Indo-European migrants came in, absorbed the culture, and assimilated. That's what you are. But again, let me share my page. Let me share my screen. Share my screen. All right. Now, before I get started, let me show you all what book this is. The one pre-evil language traced experimentally throughout ancient inscriptions and alphabetical characters of lost powers from the 4 continents. Read for free. You can find this on Google Books. To begin with, the country of the Khazar Tartars, to which the Israelites with certainty are known to have migrated. You all are from there, but Israelites migrated there. There will be people with haplogroup E migrating to Khazar Tartar. And from thence, it has been clear to show they must have passed into Afghanistan and to India, where you get the coaching Jews from. It is expressly stated by Ibn Haluka himself, an eyewitness of the fact that there were 2 distinct branches or castes of the Khazars, the one white and the other black. The one white and the other black. Let me zoom in to this footnote. Look at this footnote. The people of Khazar are near the Turks, whom they resemble. That's you. That's the Ashkenazi Jews. There are 2 classes, one blackish complexion and such dark hair that you would suppose them to be descended from Hindus. The other race fair complexioned. These sell their children, but it's not allowed amongst the Jews and Christians to sell or make one another slaves. From this passage, not only do we learn that one branch of the Khazars were black and another white, but we gather defensive fact. Let me go down to this, that the Khazar Jews were of black stock. So I'm not tripping. You are, brother. So again, brother, the Khazar Jews were of black stock. The white people that was in Khazar, that was in Kazakhstan, those are the people that the black Jews converted. That's why y'all have 20% haplogroup E. That's why y'all have mtDNA L2 from us, from our people. You're not the original. It goes on to say, as plainly follows from the circumstance of the white Khazars, and they alone selling their children. They sold their children. Consequently, the Jews who did not sell their children were of black race. So the black Khazars or the black Jews that was in Khazaria, they did not sell their children, but the white Khazars did. Let me continue to read what this was saying. Let me get out these footnotes, man. Because when you actually study, when you actually know what you're talking about, you can disprove folly. By the Israelite tribes, it is the very same phenomenon which is found at the present day in the black Jews and white Jews in Malabar. So you had the same thing going on in Malabar. You had white Jews, you had black Jews, you had white Jews and black Jews in Khazaria. You had black Jews, you had white Jews in Malabar. You had white Jews, you had black Jews in Afghanistan, as we're about to read. Mr. Elephantine's work supplies a fresh example of the same character and contrast, and in the case still more nearly in the point that one of the tribes in Afghanistan, the Nasrs, in their persons, they are small, black, and ugly. We find the Nasrs enjoying the same liberty with most other Afghanistans, that the Nasrs of Afghanistan, and therefore, like other black Jews, claim to be Beni Israel, not no damn Ashkenazi. Come on, man. Come on, man. I'm done with this dude. Let me get back to answer these questions, man. I'm done with this dude. Well, Shlomo, there are many sources that say Jews of Spain and Portugal were exiled to Saint Thomé. It's just like there's thousands of sources. I could literally make a video called 100 Proofs, where I go through 100 different sources where these people say the Jews were niggas, the Jews were Negroes, the Jews were Africans, the Jews were black. The Jews were not white, bro. If they are white, it's because they mixed their seed and they became white over years. He didn't spread Semitic languages, even though it existed in the Levant longer. Jay began to arrive in the Levant as Semitic speakers. Okay, he said that, but I can bring out another paper that literally says EP2, haplogroup EP2, and its implications and distribution of Afro-Asiatic languages and pastoralism. You all brought Indo-European languages into the Levant. You all brought Indo-European culture into the Levant. Shoot, the Akkadians are haplogroup E. The sons of Joktan are haplogroup E. The sons of Ishmael are haplogroup E. You have Sephardic Jews with haplogroup E. Ashkenazi Jews with haplogroup E. So where are you getting J from, brother? I have prominent Congo, Bantu, and Benin, and Nigerian Yoruba blood. All praise to Yah. Spirit is speaking. Indeed, he's speaking, man. We can't keep letting these people interrupt what we have going on. Trying to distract us. Again, man, we putting on for ourselves. We've been lied to. Nobody's taught us our history. And when we come back and teach ourselves our history, we have Europeans trying to tell us we don't know what we're talking about. When y'all been the ones lying to us. Now we have genetics. We have the history. We have the oral traditions. We have everything we need. We have all the proof we need to know who we are. Most haplogroup are Scythians. Thank you, who came out of Iran, Shlomo. If you are haplogroup is I, then you are German / Ashkenaz. If your haplogroup is J, then you are Turk. Oh my God. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. It's that simple. All these haplogroups can be traced back. The Proto-Semites are the Natufians. They had haplogroup E. The Ibero-Marusians, haplogroup E. Basal Eurasians, haplogroup E. This brother doesn't know what he's talking about. It's okay to be a Gentile. Like it's okay. Like I just showed you, them black Ashkenazis, those black Jews and Ashkenazis, they converted your ancestors, my brother. You the one that I guess you can say cleaves to the house of Israel and assimilated into our culture and took on our oral traditions. All right. They don't want to hear the truth, man. They don't. Biblical evidence, DNA evidence, historical evidence, anthropological evidence points to heavily melanated people. All right. It's really, I don't understand why people, have hard understandings of this, man. It's really that simple. Indeed, all praise to Yah. We're going to continue to spread this truth. He said, and the E and Ashkenazi have more than likely came from Ishmaelites, E1B1B. More likely, the Ashkenaz did not get their E from Israelite Shlomo. All right. And again, it is possible that, like you said, we know the Moors were E1B1B. We know the Ishmaelites were E1B1B. So we pay trolls, dust, stay focused to your calling, brother. We are in the fullness of time. All right. And I agree with that, man. I'm gonna try my best to lead these, let these trolls be. I'm gonna try my best to let these trolls be, but he got under my skin today, family. All right. The brother says, Wilson, y'all, what can we do to trace our lineage back to Jamaican Jews or other West Indian Hebrews? All right. Well, one, you can go to your Rastafarians. All right. Another thing is you can look into your Basically, you look into your ancestry. You can see if you are a descendant of slave or not. Look into your family records. Look at your surnames, stuff like that. Look at communities or Sephardic communities that are brought out in Jamaica and in the West Indies. See if you have people that was in that location. All right, things like that. Like for me, I know I wouldn't be a Sephardic Jew because in my family records, I have family records of my ancestors coming over here from Western Africa as slaves and things like that. So I would be more on the West African Jewry side opposed to the Sephardic Jewry side. But like we brought out about Rabbi Abel Respites. Let me bring that up real quick because this is a perfect example of what you're saying. Rabbi Abel Respites actually, yes, Rabbi Abel Respites actually found out he was a Sephardic Jew by way of his surname, traced his history back, and found out that he was actually descendant of a Sephardic Jew that came in through the slave trade. All right. Let's see. Yeah, you might as well give it up. And yes, I'm interested in speaking on mic sometime. I mean, I told you to email me last time you came over here talking crap, but you didn't. All right. And brother of L, what pages do you specifically want me to go to? All right. What pages do you specifically want me to go to in this book? Everybody I brought out look like us black fellas. You need to go rewatch the video, my brother. Matter of fact, you need to go rewatch all my videos and email me. Matter of fact, I'm finna put my email right there for you. You know what I'm saying? We can have a real man-to-man conversation. No, I guess you can say no arguments, no this, no that, just talking. We can set up a one-on-one Zoom, whatever you want to do. We can just have a real conversation. I can show you that you don't know what you're talking about. All right, there's my email. All right, in Doorville, I'm about to bring it up real quick. Let me go through my email, see if I can pull it. Please, brother, go ahead and email me now, Mr. Shlomo. Please, now. Ooh, this is a nice source right here, brother. But it's blurry. Brother, brother Doorville, do you have this full book? Oh, he sent me the full book. Okay, but let me see. 1 second, family. I'm trying to see if I can pull this up. Brother says page 1. Okay. Again, give me 1 second, family. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and everything for me before we get ready and wrap it up. All right. Yeah, brother Dorville. I'm not seeing it. It's not loading for me right now. Only thing I got open right now, or only thing that's loading is the picture. The full book not loading. But this is a pretty fire source from what I'm reading so far. But it's blurry, so but I'm gonna continue to answer these questions real quick. Brother says, Shlawa Akya, keep putting out the truth out. The fact I looked up Jamaicans being descendants of Moors and Jews in Portugal, Sephardic Jews. The fact I looked up Jamaicans being descendants. Okay, yes. Shalom, brother. The world knows what time it is. They definitely know what time it is, bro. They definitely know what time it is, brother. Hey, man, my brother do it for the nation. It's fire with the music, man. Fire with the music, man. Get at him. Get at him. Yeah, it's probably Jamaica. If you say it like that, probably. Yeah, it probably has some type of origin like that. All right. Go ahead, email me, Shlomo. I'm waiting on you. Okay. All right. Now I'm about to share what the brother just sent me right quick. All right. Once I wrap this up, I'm gonna email you back. But I'm about to share what this brother just sent me. All right, brother. Go ahead and drop a link to you know what I'm saying, to some of your music in the chat for us real quick so we can have a family listen to you, man. Go ahead and do that, brother. But again, the brother Dorville just sent the fire source. A good source. I'm about to bring it out real quick, showing pictures of Black Jewish women. I guess it's the brother was trying to say there's no Jewish or Black. Oh, here we go. It's not blurry no more. So here we go. I guess I had to zoom in further. But figure 11, 5 female slaves on their way to represent houses of worship on Palm Sunday, which coincided in 1829, the year of the artist's arrival in Suriname, with the second day of the Jewish holiday of Passover. From right to left are Lutheran, a Jewish dressed in white. All right. So this would be the Jewish, I'm guessing, if we go from right to left. So a Jewish dressed in white, and she's black. Well, all these women are black, but it goes on to say a Calvinist, a Moravian, and in the background, a Afro-Creole Christian. All right. And we know an Afro-Creole Christian, that could very well be a converted Sephardic Jew to the Christian religion. Again, brother, I appreciate this source. And I was actually trying to get this book you sent me. So you really just did me a huge favor. I wanted to actually bring out some sources from this book in this video, but I didn't have the book. So appreciate that, brother. Good looking. Brother says check your Instagram. My GM match. I got you, brother. I got you. And everybody add me on Instagram as well. If you know what I'm saying, so we can just be in contact. You know what I'm saying? I post a lot of stuff on Instagram, a lot of more sources and stuff on Instagram than I do on here. So that's my Instagram if you ever want to get in contact with me when I'm not on live and everything. And the brother says, what is the name of that book? I'm about to put it in the chat for you. Start at page 328 or just search Black Jews. Start at page 328. All right. This is good edification, undebatable. I agree, brother. I agree. I agree. I agree. All right, family. So I'm gonna stick around for about 2-3 more minutes. You know what I'm saying? See what you all have to say. Then we're gonna wrap it up. And please, I haven't even said nothing about the West African Jewry. That's gonna be a good video as well. We're gonna show the customs. We're gonna show the tradition. We're gonna show the word of mouth. All right. We're gonna show everything we can show to prove and to just prove that our ancestors that came over as slaves from Western Africa, they knew who they were. You know what I'm saying? They knew who they were. And majority of those people over there today in Western Africa are still keeping the traditions. So this ain't nothing but a continuation of what we lost, basically. Us reawakening, us coming back to, you know, our roots. That's nothing but a continuation of what was lost. All right. All right. So again, family, one last time before we wrap it up. And again, I thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like and share. All right. Make sure you like and share. And Shlomo, you definitely did not email me. You definitely did not email me. You said you emailed me. But I didn't get it. Did I put the right email in the chat? Yep. Yes. I have some good information, especially about the quote unquote Mississippi Negro. Right? We got some good information going in. Basically coming up in part 2, man. So just make sure you all be on the lookout for part 2. It's gonna be real edifying, real groundbreaking. Because again, you don't see people breaking out. You don't see people actually proving who we are. All right. You don't see people actually give you undeniable evidence, give you source material, giving you books and things to go to and read to actually, you know, comprehend and understand this information. All right. So we got a lot of people saying we Israelites, but we don't have a lot of people proving it. All right. So with that, family, I don't see any more questions or anything in the chat. I'm going to get out of here. And again, make sure you like, share this video, and be ready to come back for a part 2. I may do it tomorrow or next Shabbat. And even for you, Shlomo, I got a video for you. I got a video for you. Japhet shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Japhet shall dwell in the tents of Shem. All right. That's what you and your family came and did. Y'all took over Semitic and Hamitic culture in the Levant, man. Peace and blessings to everybody. I might bring it out tomorrow. If not, it'll be next Shabbat. But again, much love. Thank you for supporting, family. Shalom.